Well, if you thought the battle over women's spaces has reached every corner it possibly can, think again. The latest front, the Daughters of the American Revolution. Senator Marsha Blackburn says it is time to make sure daughters actually means biological females as she introduces legislation to bar biological men from joining the DAR. Blackburn telling Fox News the DAR was founded by women for women, and its founders would be appalled that the organization is now allowing biological males to become members and undermine the legacy of real women who helped build our nation. The push comes after a vote at the DAR's National Convention in June where delegates whose direct ancestors helped secure America's independence voted down redistricting membership to those born female. Co-sponsors of the bill told Fox the legislation protects the DAR's founding mission. Senator Katie Britt said it's about honoring American women. Senator Mike Lee pointed to the word daughter being right in the group's name. Senator Tommy Tuberville argued the left has lost sight of the difference between men and women. And Senator Kevin Cramer said the group was founded specifically for women to honor America's patriotic forebears. We reached out to the Daughters of the American Revolution for comment, but have not yet heard back. What the heck? How have we, Emily, gotten here?
I was shocked that the members voted not to restrict membership for that way. Like that to me, I thought, surely wouldn't they of all people sort of reflect the basic fundamentals of what makes America great? And in my opinion, it's not gender being fluid and all of those things now, this nonsense. I do think, I obviously appreciate this legislation. There's a lot of stalemate happening on the Hill. So when I hear about things like this, I think to myself, great, can you just add on another 20 bills, get that all done too? And could you also make sure this is upheld in the Supreme Court for every other state too that we see as being pierced by biological men in things that they shouldn't be, like individual clubs and sports and the like. So I see this as a great step, but there's a lot more work to be done. And I wish that, by the way, not even receiving a comment back surprises me too. If your members voted a certain way, then why don't you release a statement standing by it? Are you embarrassed? Are you ashamed? Are you shocked? Because we are.
Fair enough. We'll see if we still hear back. Rosanna, are we still in this place where we're having a hard time in this country defining a woman or keeping spaces specifically for women?
I was thinking the same thing because, I mean, in D.C., they don't know how to describe a woman. They don't know how to define a woman. We've seen that time and time again. I think a Supreme Court justice, right, was struggling to find the words how to define a woman. Listen, this is more than membership policy. This is historic identity. It goes back to 1896 when Congress granted the Daughters of the American Revolution a federal charter to recognize women who could trace their lineage to revolutionary patriots. Okay, so there are plenty of organizations that deal with certain things, like if you're a veteran, you can't play around with that to join a veterans group. A police officer, firefighter, sorority. Those things start to change. Fraternity, you never know. But I do think that there's some things that should be sacred. The Daughters of the American Revolution should be one of them.
Yeah, founded by women for women, Tom. So what kind of biological male would want to disrespect that history?
Well, you can imagine it's probably people who sit on the board and they have a son who's going through this, transition or whatever it happens to be, and they want to support their kids or whatever. The thing is, it's so ironic because in order to become a member of this organization, you have to provide very detailed paperwork that shows that you can trace your lineage down to the people who founded this country. Except when it comes to your birth certificate, they say, oh, about that, forget it. Let's just go by your new Facebook profile. So I don't want to save them. Marsha Blackburn is fantastic. Marsha, you're doing great work. And I know that the sentiment is good. She's trying to save this organization. They don't deserve saving. They have to suffer. They have to be voted out. The people who are running this organization are running it into the ground. And so people have to rise up. I'm sorry, Marsha, don't save them from their own stupidity.
Yeah, what if I wanted to identify as someone who has direct lineage to our founders, Don?
Yeah, I don't think that works, right? And talking about the paperwork, they are very specific about what they want. I know people that are a part of this, and this is crazy to me. I agree with you, Tom. I don't think that they need saving. I really don't. And I think that although Marsha's ideas here are right in the global sphere, I think looking at this, this is not where we need to be wasting our time on the legislative game here. I feel like this is something that if they want to do this, let them do it. If their voters and the membership want to do this, let them do it. Women have been attacked on every level lately, and anything that women have that's separate has been completely dismembered. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this is no different than men and women's sports and all the fights that we're having. But at some point, these organizations have to do what they want to do for themselves. And I don't know, I'm feeling like if I thought about what I would feel like in an organization like that, and I'd obviously be unhappy with that decision, I would just quit. So at some point, the people who voted against this should either quit, they should start their own circumstance. But if we start legislating every single group and what groups can do, I think that's a little bit dramatic. And I also think every time I say this, where are the feminists? Where are the Gloria Steinems of the world? Why isn't she stepping up to say, no, women need to have their spaces? She's not stepping up when we're talking about women and men and women's sports or men and women's bathrooms, and this is no different.
That is a great point, and that goes back to my initial question, how did we get here?
That's right.
And so fast. Okay, thank you very much.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.